Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. Well, we're back after a blizzard-inspired delay, and tonight we were discussing the connection between a vintage Vacheron and the newest Zenith Chronomaster. I recommend a $10,000 watch for an enthusiast who's in the market, and we're predicting what the next Blancpain 50 Fathoms might look like. All of that, and of course, viewer wrist shots tonight on Watches Tonight. So, check out the redesigned homepage of thewatchbox.com. As I always like to say, open up a different window, keep me streaming, but definitely window shop because no one does it better. From my favorites at de Bethune to the ever-popular Rolex Omega and Breitling, we have over 3,000 pre-owned, late model, and vintage watches for sale right now. And they pay for these pixels. Guys, as you filter in, I see Eddie Landsberg, longtime friend of the house up in Harvard Yard. Got Edward Leyden of Sweden, Blue Shirt Buddha. Marco Bernardi saying hi. Hi, Marco. Good to have you. We've got Matteo C. We've got Mr. No Date. We've got Get Outa. We've got Nolan Reed saying, first time ever being on time for one of these. All it took was having a day off for surgery. Feel better, Nolan. And of course, Coast Life, Jim Millett, David B. Budik 1 from Poland, and Mosso. Richard Combs from South Florida. We got Eric Nielsen. We've got Luis Q. We got Philip Sebastian Peterson. And we've got Arjun joining in from Dubai. We've also got Tim S. joining in from the home of A Lange und Sonne in Germany. Seymour Rivers, who's on his fourth drink. Well, pull up a few more because we're going to be here for a while. And Francisco S., who is on the Zenith waiting list. Is that a thing now, Zenith waiting lists? Wow. So, guys, as you filter in and we top off our viewership, a lot of guys cycle through. It's like the baseball game. Everyone's not there until the second inning. So, about being a YouTuber. Now, here's the funny thing. I deal with all sorts of weirdness in order to be a public person for you guys. Just today, I received a promotional offer from something called Coldest Water. Okay, Coldest Water. Now, that's totally a real name, by the way, the sender, Carla Cold. I totally believe that's her real name right there. I'm certain that this is not just the coldest, but also the wettest and most liquid water, but apparently coldness is its claim to fame. Also, I can get $350 if I make a pile of individual videos for them. We bring that back up again because it's an absolute gem. So if I make like 10 videos for them and get $350 rather than showing, say, a Grubel 4C, I could also earn an 8% commission on sales of bottled water. And to top it all off, and this really is the clincher, I could get branded bottled water swag. All of this just to stop doing my work for a $100 million company. They clearly didn't do their research. All the same, I appreciate the offer. If you guys are looking to make 8% commissions on water sales, boom, you've got the hookup and you've got the email for Carla Cold herself. All right, jumping back into the box right now. Viewer wrist shots, I asked, you answered. And we've got Saad from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia with the spectacular H. Moser & C Pioneer Center Second in Cosmic Green, with a Corona-like lighting effect on that green dial. We've got Abdul R. in the Black Forest in Germany with his vintage Rolex Datejust braving the winter snow. We've got Patrick W. and the latest Rolex Submariner returning to Rolex Geneva for a homecoming of sorts. We have JCS and his Rolex Datejust Turnograph getting his first COVID shot. Good man. Take care, get that second shot. My mom got her second shot today. I think everyone else in the world is waiting for #1, so good man, also lucky man. David C. of Connecticut and his 1990s Zenith Rainbow El Primero Watch the Snow Fall. That watch was featured on our last show, most apropos. Now, we did miss last week because of my local blizzard. And after all, no, not that kind of blizzard, I wasn't playing StarCraft or World of Warcraft. No, I missed it because of the other kind of blizzard. We were basically snowed out, and I was the one who walked to work, so I was snowed in. So I missed my chance for a rapid-fire follow-up to what was one of our most viewed and frankly most controversial shows ever. And there were passionate opinions about the subject of that show, which is the 2021 Zenith Chronomaster. It has inflamed opinions, and everyone seems to have one. No one is neutral on this watch. And it has an uncanny, if we're honest, resemblance, calculated, if we're honest, to the current Rolex Daytona. And how closely did they parallel this ever-popular favorite? Well, even the Zenith clasp, if we take a look at the Zenith clasp and the Rolex clasp, are absolute mirror images of each other, and that's no accident. But there is good news for Zenith loyalists, of which I am one, and I was a fan of Zenith even when they didn't have a US distributor, and they were profoundly frumpy and uncool. Back when they had ads of like an old guy and his grandson, and you're like, you know, he's gonna be lucky if the kid even wants the watch. I was into Zenith back then, and I know you were too, because this is where the enthusiasts go. Watches tonight. So here's the good news. There is hope, because this new watch will have a chance to grow out of the shadow of the design that primarily inspired it, and there's a significant example from Vacheron Constantin history that provides a very useful case study. I want to note, guys, 2 weeks later, now we've seen it, we've had a chance to take it in, some of us have had a chance to take delivery. What do you think of this new Chronomaster? We've got Mirko L joining in from Belgrade. We've got Emily N saying, I am an OG Zenith fan, and Emily, I absolutely believe you on that count right here. Let's see. We've got Sean B from Temple, Texas joining in. We've got Hans N joining in. Always good to see you guys in the box. And then Danny R, I feel like Tim has yet to warm to sponsorship. That sponsorship in particular, you're absolutely right, Danny R. But here's the thing. 1970s, we're turning back the clock. This is a case study that justifies what Zenith is doing with the Chronomaster and gives it a chance to become a classic in its own right. The 1970s probably witnessed more borrowing of all kinds of wristwatch design than the prior half century before that, when wristwatches first became popular. IWC's Da Vinci 3501, shown here, and Rolex's 5100 Beta 21 kind of led out of the gate at the beginning of the 70s, and those watches really established what the look of the period would be. And I have it through impeccable scholars that this watch was actually designed by Gerald Genta before the Royal Oak, the Jumbo Ingenieur, and the Nautilus. So let's consider this to be the formative design and the influential design, not necessarily the Royal Oak. It started with this guy right here. So, of course, Genta continued after the Rolex 5100 with his 1972 AP Royal Oak 5402, the original 39mm jumbo JLC-powered Gayfrère bracelet and clasp, a very special piece, and followed up in 1975 by the Laureato 4266, which Genta did not design, but you can already see that we are establishing a pattern of design through the mid-70s. And then, of course, Genta reprising his Royal Oak in evolved form with the 1976 Nautilus 3700 Jumbo, and that year's Jumbo Ingenieur, reference 1832. Clearly, they are their own watches, but they're very much in the same vein, and they are very much along the same lines. But here's the thing. I'm not talking about those watches today. No, if we're honest, the closest parallel, story-wise and genesis-wise, to today's Zenith scenario is the 1977 Vacheron Constantin 222. 500 pieces in steel, 120 in two-tone, 100 in full gold. And here's the thing right here. It's a design that is exactly what our new Zenith is today to the Rolex Daytona. If you consider the Zenith and the Rolex Daytona as a little bit more than kissing cousins, that is what the Vacheron was like. If we go back to the picture of the Vacheron, you can see the inspiration. And in 1977, there had already been over half a dozen major brand luxury watches that copped that full integrated look with a proud of the case bezel. I'll also say this. Vacheron employed almost the same size, same shape, and literally the same movements as its predecessors from Audemars Piguet and Patek Philippe. It was the same JLC 920 Bausch there, albeit Geneva hallmark. But in spite of arriving late and offering few true style innovations, the assembly quality, the rarity, the finish, the breeding, and the enduring appeal of the Vacheron 222 led it to become a respected collectible in its own right. And if you go on Chrono and you look at the best examples, they're pulling in tens of thousands of dollars. No, we're not at 5402 Royal Oak or 3700 Nautilus levels, not yet, but this is real money. And they were selling for a fraction of that just a few years ago. It continues. The 1996 Vacheron Overseas. Even at the time, now that's the third generation watch, but back in 1996, designers Vincent Kaufman and Dino Modolo explicitly cited the 1977 Vacheron 222 as the inspiration for the modern day Overseas. So not only is this watch now a respected and valuable collector and a real investment piece, but it also has an enduring impact on watches that are still built, sold, and enjoyed every day. And this third generation Overseas really is at least the equal of the Nautilus and the standard Royal Oak. This is a concrete example of how a watch that's born entirely from borrowed elements can grow in stature, attract a following, and become a classic in its own right, stand, as it were, on its own integrated lugs. I would also say that in 2019, when I visited Vacheron Constantin at Watches and Wonders Miami, they had the entire series of Vacheron sports watches on display. They had the third generation Overseas, the second generation, the first generation from the 90s, and right next to it, they had their museum quality copy of the 222, absolutely mint, still with its original packing stickers, and the company's museum-owned 222 was the star of the show. Everyone who visited Vacheron that day wanted to walk out of the Vacheron boutique in the Miami Design District with the 222. No one wanted the Overseas. As good as the third generation is, everyone wanted this. And when people feel that way about an old watch alongside modern iron, it means only one thing. It's a classic and it's got soul. So, it's true, the new Chronomaster does look a lot like the Daytona, but it also has a lot to recommend it on the basis of movement, availability, attractive price, the El Primero's history, and the fact that there is a good deal of Chronomaster design in there. It's about 80% Rolex, 20% Zenith, but it's that 20% of original style that's going to give it its own identity, its own following, and ultimately its own classic status, and I strongly believe that. If you doubt it, check out the 222. Now, jumping into the box, seeing what you guys are saying right here, we've got a mention of the Tim Mosso Facebook group. It's true, I'm on Facebook, guys. Now 3,100 members and counting. I'm there every day. We're live streaming this thing right now on the Facebook group. And the after party for Watches Tonight is always on Talking Time with Tim Mosso on Facebook. We've got Just In EDC joining from West Virginia, USA. We've got Alexi Samola of Finland. We've got Soma R saying the Overseas is awesome, but that bezel is too much. A lot of folks prefer the Generation 1 and 2 bezel. The third generation had a little plinth underneath it that lifts it up maybe a little bit too much. Right here we've got Enrique Cassiano, saying the Vacheron 4500 automatic is preferable to the Patek Nautilus 5711. Enrique, I agree with you. I would much rather have the current Vacheron Overseas self-winding, and I actually think that the current Overseas self-winding is the best watch in the lineup. For the second generation, I would have said get the chronograph. For the third generation, I say get the automatic. I think it's the best proportioned and the best sized. Right here, we have Emily N saying that VC bracelet is so Nautilus. You're not wrong. Again, it was born of those designs of the 70s. It was derivative in its day, and yet we have come to love it. And this is just a great way to explain that even when something isn't totally original, it can still be lovable. You know, none of us ever invented the dog, but we still love dog breeders. I mean, kind of a weird comparison. Ultimately, we love things that are wholesome, that are endearing, that are inspiring, even if they're not entirely original. And then right here we've got Alex S. saying 42042, that is the modified first generation Vacheron Overseas automatic, is always beautiful. It is a beautiful watch. At 37 millimeters, it's perfectly sized. It is super thin. It is very water resistant. And the first generation Overseas was the only one to be chronometer certified, which I really like, with the GP-based movement. Just an awesome piece. And if you get it with a salmon or blue dial and original factory tritium, that is the way to get it. Jumping back into viewer wrist shots, number 2, Raphael S. and his Rolex GMT Master roll with the beastly Lamborghini Urus SUV. We've got Emil G and his Rolex Sea Dweller wreck diving in South Africa, and you can actually see the top of the wreck in the distance there. Chris L of Singapore enjoys a Sunday gin and tonic with his Watchbox Singapore bought Hublot Big Bang Unico all black. Thank you for trusting our company, Chris. Xavier N and his Omega Seamaster Aquaterra are on the road with Subaru on a Friday before kicking off the weekend. And Simon H and his Jaguar stay on time with a Watchbox bought Rolex Yachtmaster steel platinum. Very cool, guys. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com. Let me know, guys, what you would buy with $10,000, because that is our next topic. We're not there yet. I'm going to read from the chat box here. We have Karate Chop joining in. We've got Simon Holt from Hollywood, Northern Ireland. We've got Siniolchu joining from Thailand. We have Thomas Burnett and Bugatti Veyron in the box, plus Mark S. from Brooklyn and Jabo Surf from Adelaide, Australia. We've got Often Licked saying Lamborghini Urus, the Lamborghini for people that want to say they drive a Lamborghini but don't actually want to drive a Lamborghini. If you've ever seen a Countach break down 3 times in the course of one car show and cruise, you would agree that sometimes the Lamborghini Urus with engineering by Audi is the one you want to drive. And then right here, we've got Clarence Wong joining in, and we've got John Watchsmith and Dinko B. Asking Tim, what is your opinion of the Roger Dubuis Le Monégasque in steel? I love it. If you can find Le Monégasque chronograph in steel, you're getting possibly the best high horology bargain on the planet. Now, it's a tribute to the old Sympathy case, which everyone loves, making it one of the few modern Roger Dubuis pieces that classicists actually like. And launched in 2011, it was prior to the rise of the Excalibur as the dominant look, which means you can get solid dials rather than the later skeletons in cases that are large but not too large. The Monégasque with a chronometer certification and Geneva hallmark and a manufacturer micro rotor movement in stainless steel for like 10 grand, you are getting so much value. I can't really recommend anything else that's comparable except to say pick up a 1990s Chopard LU Chopard chronometer Geneva hallmark for similar money. That's really its only rival. I'm a huge fan of the Monégasque in steel. I would say if you can get one of the Chesterfield stitched straps and put it on the Monégasque in steel, then you've got a home run. And of course, Roger Dubuis makes those straps for the rose gold model. You've just got to special order them for the steel, and then you've got pretty much the perfect watch. Let's see what else is going on right here. Abdul is saying there are so many options under $10,000. We've got Andreas A saying for under $10,000 I'd get a Glasuta Original Panomatic Lunar. Not a bad idea. We've got Francisco S saying racing brands of VW, Audi and Porsche, not Lamborghini. That's not entirely true. Lamborghini does support GT3 level sports car racing, and they do build a GT3 level car that competes in both IMSA on the US side and the Blancpain series. So Lamborghini does race, just not at the same level as Audi and Porsche. Okay, here's the thing. Herman K has $10,000 to spend on one luxury watch. He reached out to me and he wants to know how I would recommend he spends his money. Well, I'm not going to obligate him to spend all $10,000, but I have 3 options for under 10 grand that will leave some change in his pocket for his first service. And I'm starting with a mass-produced option. I'm starting with the late great white dial Rolex Milgauss. Now, this is a model that was discontinued in 2014. It was made from 2007 to 2014. It was replaced in the catalog by the Z Blue, which is a very different kind of watch in ambiance and character. 40 millimeters stainless steel, already rising on collector markets. These now sell for between $9,000 and $8,000 depending. All of which is to say it sells pretty close to what it would cost if it were a new Milgauss today. So the market is firm but not outrageous. Good inventory is available and you're not really paying a huge premium versus a current gen Milgauss new from the boutique to get the older discontinued white dial. I think these have more potential to rise in value than any current Milgauss, and at 40 millimeter, 100 meters water resistant, nice and thin for a Rolex, full bracelet, very wearable, dress watch, sports watch, it could be both. I think this is a fantastic option, and the used market for these, again, is just not as insane as for subs or GMTs or Daytonas, where you can pay up to twice the price of the original watch in steel. This is a true price, but one that has potential to move up. Now, independent horology. Stefan Kudoka would be my recommendation. The Stefan Kudoka 2, his second wholly designed watch. This is a model that actually won a lot of accolades when it came out, and the watchmaker himself is being awarded as he is a candidate for AHCI induction, which is the cool kids club of independent watchmakers that also includes F.P. Journe, Philippe Dufour, Kari Voutilainen, Beat Haldeman, Vianney Halter. You see where I'm going with this? It's a big deal. But whereas all of their watches tend to be quite dear and cost deep into 5 figures, this is one you can actually pick up U.S. retail for $10,700. So with a little bit of a discussion with your dealer, you should be able to get this for the $10,000 budget, maybe even a little underneath. It was the 2019 GPHG Petite Aiguille winner, which is a price point prize in the GPHG. And frankly, this watch could win at any level as it is entirely handcrafted, and you get an impressive amount of handicraft in the 39mm stainless steel case, which also makes it universally wearable. It's also gorgeous on the back of the case, where you can see hand finishing as well as the star, which is the freehand engraved balance cock. Note the solarization on the ratchet wheel. That's done manually too. And the graining that's lavished on the bridge with giant blued screws. That is truly special, and it's not the kind of thing you expect for 10 grand. Complication. I love complications, and this is generally where I spend my watchmaking money when I buy watches. So I would say the rarely seen but much loved IWC GST Perpetual Calendar Chronograph, the reference 3756 made from 2001 to 2004, that's where I would spend my $10,000. The salmon dial model you see here in steel was only made for 2 years, so that's a rarity within a rarity. I would also say that you're getting a lot. 43mm in steel is big but wearable, and at $9,000 to $10,000, by the way, you can also get it in steel with a black dial. You're getting a lot of watch. Aside from the rarity, there are a lot of features. 120 meters water resistant, automatic winding. It's got the IWC Kurt Klaus mechanically programmed perpetual calendar system. So using nothing but the crown, you can adjust the entire calendar system, including the year, including the decade, including the moon phase. And all you have to do is set it to the current date and everything else moves in sync. It is one of the friendliest perpetual calendars on the market and a modern day legend in watchmaking. You're also going to get an aventurine moon phase, and it is truly aventurine glass, which is lustrous and unexpected on an aggressive sports watch. And on top of all of that, it is a chronograph. There's a lot to love here. The rarity, the features, the versatility, the integrated bracelet, the fact that you can swim with it, you can take it to the bedroom, the boardroom, the restaurant. This is a watch that you can take to play pool or swim in the pool. Either way, it works. The market is stable and selection is good. Like I said, there's a couple of different versions. You can get a gray dial, you can get a silver dial, a black dial, and a salmon dial. I'd shoot for the salmon dial because it's the rarest, but some folks are going to want the titanium watch with the black dial, and that I understand too. Jumping into the box right here, Edward Ledden is saying I would buy a JLC Amvox 2 triggerless chronograph for less than $10,000. I gotta agree with that. That's a good point, and that is a watch I've owned in the past. So I put my money where my mouth is. Enrique is saying $10,000, get an Omega Ploprof titanium. Definitely. Pre-owned, you can have great modern day Seamaster 1200 meter Ploprof selection. Titanium full shark-proof bracelet is the way to go. With the mesh bracelet and the diving clasp, that's how I get my Ploprof. And I get it with the titanium dial and the ceramic bezel. See what else, what you guys are saying right here. We've got Phil McCracken saying the Milgauss would be my call for sure. They've all been creeping up in value, and that's definitely true. We've got Mark S. mentioning my old saw. You can take the watch to the bedroom. That's often mentioned in contrast to the car, which stays at the curb, but the watch can go to the bedroom, the boardroom, the restaurant. It is always in the mix. And then we've got Karate Chop saying my shirt has Fotina. I thought of it more as a tie-dye, but I guess you could consider that maybe. But I really do think it's like a layered dyeing of the material. I don't necessarily think it's designed to look weathered. I think this is more like a very expensive button-up tie-dye here. And then we've got Zapigs in Blankets saying Cartier Santos chronograph. Good point. The current Cartier Santos with the Smart Link and the Quick Switch bracelets is really cool. I might go for the standard Santos blue dial at about $7,000, but the chrono's also in our budget. And then right here, we had often looked saying IWC 3713 is pretty neat too, although a little bit chunky. You're not wrong. You're not wrong on either count. And then we've got Quarters Eye saying Chrono Swiss Flying Regulator Manufacturer. Another great option. We've got Tanoki's from Bristol, UK. Bristol, UK, if I'm not mistaken, the home of the SS Great Britain. and a historic glass-blowing town. Very neat. And then we've got John N. saying, I love the IWC perpetual calendars. Probably go for that one. We've got Tim S. asking, Tim, have you ever been to Germany? I have only stopped over at the airport in Frankfurt. I'm embarrassed to say I have not spent any time on the ground in Germany. It is high on my list of things to do. That, and frankly, learn a few words of German. I have watchmaking French. Now for my visits to Lange and Gio and Zinn, I need to learn watchmaking German. We've got Emily saying, a watch in the bedroom is a big plus. You've got it from our only female member in the chat box tonight, guys. And then we've got Jonathan Orstein. We've got Mick in Florida. We've got BizJet saying Mont Blanc Heritage Monopusher Chronograph Salmon Dial. And we've got Koji saying Frankfurt Airport is really nice. It's true, it's also really big, and if you find yourself on the wrong side of the airport at the wrong gate, it's a heck of a run too. I got my workout that day. All right, viewer wrist chats number 3. Let's see what you got for me, guys. John N., who's in the box tonight, stuns with his Hopring Irvin Lab 02 by Messina Lab. This is a very cool collaboration between the Hobrings and, of course, William Messina, collector and watch expert extraordinaire. Richard C. of South Florida rocks the Miami coast with his platinum Baguette Diamond Index Rolex Daytona, which is just monstrously gorgeous. Nicely done, Richard. Thomas C. and his AP Royal Oak 15500 watch the sunset in Palm Springs, California. And Stephen B. of Coconut Creek, Florida shares his Orient Sun and Moon with coffee. Looking good. Waking up. Rising with the shine and the caffeine. Brandon K. and his Damasco DS-30 fly by U.S. Army AH-64 Apache helicopter on a cross-country. Very cool, Brandon. Nicely shot. I love that green hand. Good job going with the green option, Damasco. Okay, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your pieces on these pixels. Now right here, we have Koji saying Munich Airport had great food. What, doesn't anymore? What changed? And then right here, we've got Edward Litton asking, Tim, what you like about the Breitling Super Ocean Heritage Chronoworks? I like the fact that it's possibly the only Breitling ever that you buy for the movement. Guys, for those of you who don't know about the Chronoworks, in 2016, Breitling launched its first all-ceramic watch, the Super Ocean Heritage Chronograph Chronoworks, a 100-piece limited edition. It was supposed to be the first in a series inspired by the Lockheed Skunk Works, and it included things like ceramic bridges and plates, a proprietary multi-material balance that was immune to thermal variation. It included silicon drive wheels with silicon staffs that had no need for pivot jewels or lubrication because it was silicon straight into ceramic. It was full of innovations. It boosted the power reserve from 70 hours to 100. Now, here's the thing. Shortly thereafter, Breitling was sold, the Schneider family bailed, the Chronoworks series was canceled, and this watch became the first and last of the Chronoworks series. It's like Pacific Rim, Striker Eureka, first and last of the 5th generation. The point is, it was an awesome watch. It was a watch that I compared in good faith and earnestly to the JLC Master Compressor Extreme Lab 2. That's how advanced the Chronoworks was. It deserved that comparison. And here's the other thing. It's still rare. It's a watch you can pick up for like 15 grand, and someday it will absolutely be collectible. So if you've got the wrist to deal with the 46mm size, I highly recommend that watch. Now, in 1953, 2 watches defined the modern-day dive watch. On the one hand, we had Rolex's Submariner, and released just a few months prior. They were prototyped and in testing at the same time, but the first to market was Blancpain's 50 Fathoms. That's the original version right there. Now, until last year, both core models were aging and begging for redesigns. Rolex's last new sub-generation had arrived in 2008, but here's the thing. Rolex renewed the sub last year, and thus we have the new Smurf. Blancpain's last new 50 Fathoms, last fully refreshed core model, the 5015, that arrived in 2007. And as of today, 2021, the beginning of February, the 5015 is still in the catalog. Well, there have been variations on submodels like the smaller 40.3 millimeter, the bathyscaphs in ceramic, steel, and titanium. The bottom line is this remains the flagship of the 50 Fathoms line. It's the 50 Fathoms. So, with the 45 millimeter 50 Fathoms 5015 that you see right here, now 14 years old, let's forecast the future and recommend what should be included in a 50 Fathoms reboot. Let's jump into the chat box right here. We've got Ehe saying you can get a 50 Fathoms for $10,000 on a strap used. Yes, you can, in steel. Absolutely true and worth doing if you've got the wrist for a 45. Right here we've got Wolfgang Kohlerer, member of the Tim Mosso Facebook group, definitely join me, and he's saying that he's a fan of the Chrono Works. I lost your comment there, Wolfgang. This chat box is moving fast, but he is a fan of the Chrono Works, I believe. And anyway, back on our topic, let me know how you would redesign the 50 Fathoms. Here are my recommendations. First, smaller, please. The current 40.3 millimeter reference 5008 is excellent. This is the one that's formed the basis for the Ocean Commitment, for the mil-spec, Hodinkey. It doesn't have to be a 40 millimeter watch going forward. 41 to 42 works, and that is acceptable for a modern men's sports watch. But let's also keep the stubby lugs so that the watch wears small. The current 45 wears small. Give us a 41 to 42 that still wears small. Now, no more caliber 1150. The 1150 is a veteran dating back to the 1980s. While it is a fine, potentially very accurate, and with a 100-hour power reserve, a long-legged movement, it is not a sports watch caliber. It is nowhere near the durability of Omega's coaxials of the current generation. It is nowhere near the durability of the Rolex 3200 series, and frankly, it's nowhere near the durability of the caliber 1315, which is exactly what should be in the next generation 50 Fathoms. Same movement, smaller watch. Now here's the thing. The recent 40.3 millimeters have used the 1150. That needs to end. Size matters, but Blancpain, please figure this out. The 1315 is 30.6 millimeters in diameter. The smaller 1150 is 26.6. I am absolutely confident they can find a way to put the 30 millimeter movement in a 41 to 42 millimeter watch, and that's how it should be. The 1315 has a longer power reserve. It's a tougher movement. It's a more accurate movement. It's built for sports watches, and it's better looking. Please, Blancpain, smaller watch, same caliber. Also, I'm going to say stick with the sapphire bezel cap. This has been the signature of the modern 50 Fathoms since 2003 with the arrival of the 50th anniversary model. It was kept for the 2007 redesign. It gives the watch a depth, a luster, a glossy gleam, and a very expensive premium aesthetic that you cannot get with a flat piece of ceramic. It is also, if we're honest, what makes the fully loomed bezel possible, and it's even harder and more scratch resistant than ceramic. There is every reason, from tradition to aesthetics to utilitarian factors, to keep the sapphire bezel cap. I'm also going to say this, keep the price no higher than $15,000. Right now in the US, the steel watch on a strap is $14,500. Now this is Swatch Group, so Swatch Group always gets economies of scale from suppliers, which means that in reality it probably costs them no more than $2,000 to make this watch. So if the next generation watch comes out upgraded and $500 more expensive, they're going to be making, in all likelihood, just as much money. So Blancpain, please, keep the price under $15,000. We know you have the economic wherewithal to do that as part of the Swatch Group, and it would keep the watch competitive with other watches that frankly aren't of the same status, stature, and high horology provenance. Keep it under 15 grand. Also, steel and titanium options from day one, and make all of the finishes brushed. No one wants a 45 millimeter watch in high polish in the year 2021. And that goes for a 41 or 42. So even if you do redesign the watch, please, polished highlights at the most. Go with the satin finish that's now available on the titanium watches. Give us no date and date options. Date and no date. We've seen both on the mil-spec. We had the date and then we had the Hodinkey with no date. There were other differences, but considering it's nothing more than dial change, please give us the option of getting either straight from the factory. And save the weird heritage dials for special editions only. A lot of folks felt like the mil-specs as well as the Ocean Commitments ruined the look a little bit, because even though, especially with the mil-specs, the dial moisture indicator was historically correct, it also cluttered the dial somewhat, and not everyone loved it. So for moisture indicators, ocean commitments, NORADs, for all of that, please, special editions only, keep the standard production dial blank and minimalist. And the X71 bracelet feels wonderful on the wrist, and it's beautifully made, but it is time for the $15,000 dive watch to get a proper diving clasp. We need some sort of extension system built in there. It's not enough just to have a trigger twin deployant. It's like a dress watch bracelet right now. We need some sort of extension system in there, preferably up to 20 millimeters, preferably incremental. And guys, please, a quick release system. If Oris can do it on a $3,500 watch, Blancpain can do it on a $15,000 watch. Even better, take on the Cartier challenge and give me tool-free, sizable, removable links. Finally, 5 to 10 year warranties. Again, if Oris can do 10, and Omega and Rolex can do 5, Blancpain can do 5. There's no reason why the current 2 to 3 year Blancpain warranty should carry over into the next generation of its watches, and that includes the flagship and the icon, the 50 Fathoms. Okay, we got Mr. Watch saying, take him to school, Professor Tim. I am merely your humble servant. I'm suggesting. The guys at Swatch Group, they pull the levers. They have the ultimate power. I just hope they're watching this show. Danny Rubin saying, no idea why we need a rad symbol when companies use superluminova. It's a heritage piece, but then again, sometimes heritage becomes a cliche. I don't think we need it here. And then Baltimore Spirits Co., who sent me the most delicious rye whiskey, saying, Tim, I'll just agree with you on all points. 41 millimeter sapphire bezel is a must, no date option, brushed case, this is the way. Thank you, my good man. By the way, he sent me a delicious bottle of fine spirits. Baltimore Spirits Co. That's the only product placement / sponsorship I will acknowledge on the show. And then right here, we have Hans N saying, I hope Blancpain listens to this. You and me both. And then we've got 1 Inch Punch asking, ever been to Ireland? No, and I should be, because that is the ancestral home of the other side of my family. The Mossos are from Italy, and then the Lanes are all from Ireland. So I haven't been to either. I'm derelict. At the end of COVID, we need to make this happen, guys. We'll have a meetup. And then right here, we had Jabo Surf saying, kill the date at 4, kill it with fire. I'm with you, man, I'm with you. All right, viewer wrist shots number 4. We've got Vahik K and his Zenith Chronomaster Revival Manufacturer Edition, relaxing at home with one hell of a carpet in front of the fireplace. Edwin C, that's like Teddy Roosevelt's home there. Edwin C of Singapore and Mrs. Edwin C share a vintage bark bezel day date and the Apple Watch, past and present. We've got Henry E showcasing his Rolex Datejust black and blue dial purchased from Watchbox, and Conrad shoots a classical wrist shot with a nice cuff overlap on his AP Royal Oak 15500. Mike F and his Vacheron Constantin Overseas Chrono enjoy Sunday sun in Arizona. And finally, Brendan K and his Amvox 2 Platinum drive us home in his Aston DBS Volante. That's the other thing we love on the Tim Mosso Talkin' Time Facebook group. We love our cars. We have a lot of car threads on that group. So if you like watches or you like cars, open up a new window, go on Facebook, join me at Talking Time with Tim Mosso on Facebook. Do it tonight. I'll be there and I'll see you there. Okay, guys, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your watches on my list. Guys, thank you so much. Everyone who joined in, comment below. What do you think about the content? What would you like to see on future episodes? This is a democracy, and I'm taking requests. Thanks to my studio audience. We've got Josh, we've got Sean facilitating on the technical end, the man who makes the miracles happen. Time out, Tim out, and thanks for logging on.